On the way to the hospital to try IVF, my husband Ethan and I got into an accident and were somehow reborn together. We silently agreed to pretend we didn't know each other as we passed by. Ethan turned away and ditched the flowers he was going to give me when he proposed. I casually deleted him from Instagram. In this new life, he went for the rich girl who'd been after him, enjoying her family's support, and got himself educated abroad. I stayed home, made a life here. We crossed paths again at my son's first grade parent meeting. Ethan drove up in a fancy car, sporting a custom-made suit, while I was on my little electric scooter, taking my kid to school. He mocked me, "Fiona, you actually managed to have a kid," and then sneered, "A guy who can't give you more than a ride on a scooter is worth going through IVF for." I wasn't fazed. Instead, I glanced at the little boy by his side, because I knew the truth. It wasn't me who had the fertility issue in our past life. On the day my son had his first grade parent meeting, I was there on my little electric scooter, dropping him off. As I was parking, I heard a commotion in the crowd. "Wow, is that a Porsche 911? That car's like 300 to 400 grand. This kid hit the jackpot at birth." Someone else chimed in, "A dad who personally drops his kid off. So responsible and loaded, and also so handsome. Unlike my husband, who just lazes on the couch watching dance videos." Another person said, "Yeah, we regular folks can't compare with big shots who drive sports cars." "Hey, Ethan, you're back in the country." Right at that moment, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in years, casually saying, "Studied abroad, but of course, I came back to work here." It was 10 years later, when I heard him again, after we both had a fresh start. I saw my friend Mandy approach Ethan. "I teach at this school. What a coincidence. Your son's a first grader, isn't he? Remember our old classmate Fiona?" Ethan looked a bit bored, vaguely. "Her son's a first grader too. Maybe your kids will be classmates." Mandy noticed me in the crowd. "Look, speak of the devil, here's Fiona." Ethan and I locked eyes. A hint of disdain flashed across his, followed by a mocking murmur. "A son? Did you become a stepmom?" I was in a rush that day, not dressed up, no makeup either. I probably looked like a weathered city folk, easily lost in the crowd, with just a too pale face and a bun that made me appear a bit younger among the moms. I nodded graciously, greeting Ethan. "Long time no see." Ethan was cold and distant with his nod, but when he saw the kid next to me, his pupils dilated, eyes glued to my son. My son looked a lot like me. Maybe it's fate, but my kid and his ended up in the same class. After the meeting, Ethan looked at me like he looked in our past life, full of scorn and smug pride. "Fiona, it's your kid's first parent meeting. Couldn't you at least dress properly? Kids are sensitive. Come on. Don't always dress like a janitor. You're going to make your kid self-conscious, understand?" He gave my son a once-over. "Wow, your kid can't even compare to my son's pinky." He got close, speaking softly in my ear. "But, it's quite surprising you can have a kid. A man who only gets you on a scooter, and sends your kid to school in the rain. Is he worth having IVF for?" I gave Ethan a glance, then checked out his supposed pride and joy. In our past life, Ethan loved to call me a hen that couldn't lay eggs, but only I knew I wasn't the one who couldn't have kids. Seeing I didn't respond, he sneered again. "Leaving you was the smartest thing I ever did. Without you holding me back, my life's awesome and rich, and you, what are you now, a beggar?" He got more and more pleased with himself, practically throwing his Porsche 911 keys in my face. "I bet you've never even seen luxury car keys before. Take a good look. This is how I should have been living." "Fiona, when you deleted me from Instagram without a second thought, did you think you'd regret it today?" In our past life, we got married. Ethan had grand ambitions, but constantly failed at startups. Forget luxury cars, we couldn't even afford an electric scooter. His boastful tone felt pretty sincere at the moment. "Congratulations on getting what you wanted," I replied indifferently, without so much as glancing at the luxury car keys he flaunted at me. "We have a drawer full of those keys at home." Not the response he expected. Ethan's eyes went red, clearly annoyed. He spat out his words through gritted teeth. "Don't you have any regrets?" I truly didn't. Ethan was living the life he dreamed of. Why was he so fixated on whether I regretted it or not? Did he need me to grovel in despair to feel satisfied? Before I could say anything, a sharp, flirtatious voice broke in from behind. "Well, isn't it Fiona?" Linda walked over, a vision in a Chanel dress and a Hermes bag, smiling as she joined Ethan. "Long time, no see. I really owe you a thank you." Linda looped her arm around Ethan's, laughing. "Ethan told me how you looked down on him when he was broke his heart, which drove him to get to where he is now, thanks to realizing I was worth it. You're practically our matchmaker, but you know, a woman should know her worth." With that, she appraised me, a couple of tutting noises to boot. Seems like you didn't marry well, huh? Well, nobody rich would go for someone like you. Her words left me completely baffled. In this life, Ethan and I didn't date at all. So, there's no chance I looked down on him for being broke. It's shameless of Ethan to badmouth me just to win Linda's favor. I was about to respond, "What kind of woman do you think I am?" when I heard a little voice behind me shouting, "Mom." My son came running towards me, holding a little red flower his teacher had just given him. But Linda cut him off. She crouched down, pretending to be all friendly. "Hey there, I'm your mom's friend, Linda." She said this while pinching my son's cheek hard enough to turn it red. I swatted her hand away. "Linda, what the heck are you doing?" She wiped her hand with a handkerchief and said casually, "What? Can't I just think your kid is cute and give him a little poke or two? What's the big deal? Is your kid some sort of royalty? Are you even taking care of your kid? His lips are chapped. Maybe he needs some water," she continued, pulling a thermos from her bag. As she opened it, steam poured out. The water was clearly freshly boiled. I pulled my son behind me. "No thanks, we won't drink it, but I appreciate the offer." Linda insisted, "What? Think you're too good for me? It's just water," and came at my son with the steaming cup. Without thinking, I pushed her away. The boiling water spilled all over Linda. Her skin turned red, but she was more worried about wiping her clothes and her bag, murmuring non-stop, "My bag and clothes are new, can't get them wet." Other parents watching gave me sympathetic looks, noticing how expensive her outfit was. Linda, after cleaning herself up for a bit, yelled at me, "Fiona, I know you're just jealous that Ethan loves me and not you, but I never thought you'd go this far to ruin my things. Don't think I'll let you off just because we're old classmates. Pay up, you owe me for this. Even if you're dirt poor, you need to pay." Ethan then came over, shoving me hard, glaring furiously. "Fiona, you really crossed the line this time. Linda was just being nice, offering your kid some water, and you repay her by spilling it all over her. Nice? Who gives boiling hot water to a 7-year-old? And I didn't spill it on purpose. I barely nudged her just to make sure my kid didn't get burned." Somehow the cup tipped over. I steadied myself and clutched my son tightly, who held his little red flower just as tightly. "You can't bully my mom." Ethan glanced at my son, annoyed, then turned to me, acting like he knew all my secrets. "Fiona, seeing my wife who's young and rich must make you feel bitter. Look at you in your shabby clothes and a rundown scooter, what a sight." Parents around us gossiped. "I can't believe it. Thought Howard's mom was friendly, but she's jealous and petty. I heard she used to have a thing with this rich lady's husband, but he dumped her. This is why you can't trust people. Best to avoid folks like her, and keep our kids away from hers." The stories got more and more ridiculous. I felt like laughing out of frustration, but I knew I had to set things straight. First off, it wasn't intentional, and who gives hot water to a child? Second, as a mom, isn't it okay to refuse stuff from strangers? Linda looked at me with teary eyes. "Fiona, I really wanted to be friends with you. I thought your kid was thirsty, that's all. But you're so suspicious, it's disheartening." Then she added, "You're just not over Ethan, are you? Regretting your choices now?" "Regret what, exactly?" I asked. Linda held her chin up. "Ethan has a company now, with my dad's help. He's rich and good-looking. You regret missing out, don't you?" "You're joking, right?" I chuckled. "Not one bit." Ethan snickered like he didn't believe it. "Typical you, Fiona. Can't admit your ex is doing better. My son's got it better than yours, too. Can't you just say you're sorry?" It's ridiculous how Ethan flaunts his money and son just to show off that his life turned out differently this time around. Funny thing, that kid doesn't look like him at all. But I didn't feel like tangling with them further. "How much for the clothes and bag?" "I'll just send the money over," I said. "You want to pay up?" Linda laughed mockingly. "Do you even know how much this outfit and bag are worth? Just the bag costs 150 grand. Lady, you've got torn clothes and a used car, you can't afford it. Why do they love underestimating people so much? Since I've decided to pay, shouldn't that be proof enough I can cover it?" I took a deep breath to calm myself. "Sure, my clothes and ride are nothing fancy, but that doesn't mean I can't afford to pay you. Just give me your bank info," I replied. Linda didn't believe me. "It's not like I mean to make this hard for you. I know a hen that doesn't lay eggs treasures the few it gets." "Wow, you're really generous, huh? Not even your own kid, but you're so protective. It's just sad." My eyes finally turned cold, and I suddenly raised my hand, slapping Linda hard. "I've put up with you long enough. Your son is the real bastard." Linda's face went blank for a split second when she heard me, but she quickly snapped out of it, looking at me incredulously and yelling hysterically, "Fiona, are you crazy? Are you brain dead or something?" I didn't miss the embarrassment in her eyes. At that moment, Ethan took a few quick steps forward, shielding Linda behind him and shoving me hard. Luckily, Mandy was getting off work and saw it, quickly reaching out to steady me. My 7-year-old son stood in front of me like a brave knight, puffing out his cheeks and glaring at Ethan, who was way taller than him. "If you keep bullying my mom, I'm going to get really mad." Mandy stepped in to calm us down. "We're all old classmates. Let's talk this over." "Calm down. Look who started this." Ethan bared his teeth, pointing a finger in my face. "Fiona, do you think I'd put up with this? You broke, lowlife. How dare you treat my wife, Linda, like this? Do you really think you're someone special? I don't need your respect." She insulted my son in front of everyone. Shouldn't I fight back? I sneered, but I didn't want this mess from the past to drag my husband and son into it. I've got to handle this without any mistakes. I already said I'd pay any compensation, but your wife won't let up. She's spreading lies and slandering me and my kid. Don't worry, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I slapped her, and I'll cover the medical bills for that. I hadn't even finished when Ethan sneered, asking nastily, "Fiona, you out of your mind? Who are you pretending to be rich for? You think you can afford it?" I met his eyes, speaking clearly. "Give me the account number." "Fiona, you should really check your temper, or we wouldn't be in this mess. Do you even know how much this is?" "At least 500 grand. Are you going to ruin yourself over this?" I wasn't interested in his lecture. Getting frustrated, I repeated myself, raising my voice a bit. "Give me the account number." Ethan lowered his voice, threatening, "You already can't have kids. And if you take on 500 grand debt, you think your husband will stick around? Give me the account number." He gritted his teeth. "You're foolish, Fiona. Don't say I didn't warn you." "Ethan, stop wasting time on her." Linda was about to blow a fuse seeing Ethan subtly taking my side. "Since our old classmate wants to die on this hill for show, let's humor her. I'll give you the account number right now, and see if you can really pay up." With Linda's signal, Ethan didn't hesitate and showed the payment code. I opened the app, ready to transfer the money. As soon as the transaction password popped up, I froze a bit. After so many years of marriage, I never had to pay personally. I barely remembered the password. I entered it, and it was wrong. After trying another, still wrong. Guess I've had it easy for too long. My memory's shot. Ethan kept holding the payment code, and Linda stood by, waiting. The classmates and parents milled around, ready to watch the drama unfold. Linda snickered. "Fiona, weren't you showing off? Where's the money? My husband's arm's getting tired, and you haven't sent a dime." "What? You hit the limit." By now, everyone could see Ethan's phone hadn't buzzed at all. "I haven't used it in so long that I forgot the password," I explained. Linda laughed mockingly. "You spent all that time and came up with that excuse. That's cute." Ethan looked at me with disdain. Even the parents watching started murmuring. I thought Howard's mom was gonna own up, but guess not. Who forgets a password nowadays? Nobody's dumb enough to fork over 500 grand, just like that unless they had done living. They were gonna let her off easy, but she had to act rich. Didn't expect them to call her bluff. What an embarrassment. Linda eyed me up and down. "Now tell us, how are you gonna pay?" "Payment plan, naked loan, with you, even 100 grand's risky." "You planning to take a lifetime to pay back 500 grand? I sighed, not expecting to forget the password. "Want to find a card reader? I can swipe my card right now. My husband's card never had a password set on it. Can you drop the act already? Admit you're broke. It's hard, Ethan frowned, done with my excuses. 500 grand, Fiona. If you can't settle this, you're facing jail time. Linda smirked. We were just waiting for an apology. Now you've wasted so much time. You better get on your knees and beg me for mercy. The crowd tittered, eager for more drama. Then, a familiar, clear voice cut through the chatter. Who's getting on their knees? Max walked over, followed by the school principal and directors. Gasps went through the crowd. It's Max, the richest man in town. What's he doing here? He moved through the crowd till he was beside me. He took in the scene, noticing the strange vibe, and frowned slightly. What's going on here? Ethan, eager to get on Max's good side, explained in a sycophantic tone. Max, just a little misunderstanding. Then turned to his wife, Linda, let's not stoop to this level, especially with Max here. No need to make a scene. Linda was used to being treated like a princess, so she couldn't stand her husband being so cautious. She spoke arrogantly. So what if Max is here? Do I have to forgive someone's audacity and let this woman walk all over me? Everyone, judge for yourself. She tried to splash me with hot water. I wasn't even going to hold it against her, but she didn't think so. She even slapped me and demanded repayment, but never gave a penny. She's just playing us like fools. Was I wrong to ask her to kneel and apologize? Max, I think I deserve an explanation, right? Is that true? Max turned to look at me, with a gentle smile on his face. Did you really dare to splash hot water and slap people? Max, you don't know. I'm someone with class. And I hate speaking ill of other women, but some just don't know their limits. She's jealous of me being with Ethan, thought she missed out on a catch. So she's purposely making things hard for me. Linda showed off a water stain on her bag. Max, you should know this is a Hermes bag, and just for the accessories, it's worth $15,000. Max's face grew darker. Seeing this, Linda complained even more. A gold digger like her must have recognized it. She probably thought we wouldn't pursue it since we were old classmates. So she got worse. Are you really jealous of her? Max turned and asked me, sounding hurt. I sighed. No way. Are you kidding? Indeed, in every way. You don't compare to me, he said, eyeing Ethan. Linda saw Max's look soften and felt annoyed. Max, don't tell me you've fallen for Fiona, that poor girl. She's wearing clothes that cost $99. Max agreed wholeheartedly. That's smart. Spend wisely and save where you can. It's thrifty. Hearing this, my face burned with embarrassment. But Max said it so sincerely, like he genuinely meant it. The principal and board members nearby were surprised. I bet they'd never seen this side of Max. No one knew this successful businessman got married young, and was quite devoted to his wife, having a second chance at life. I wasn't planning on going through marriage again. Watching love turn into resentment is painful and suffocating. Max didn't chase after me dramatically. Instead, he was always there first when I needed help. I later realized some men do take everything on themselves. They don't blame their failures on their wives, or see them as mere child bearers. It wasn't marriage itself that was bad in my past life. It was that Ethan and I were just incompatible. I decided to be brave once more. And this time, I didn't lose. Max asked with concern, are you alright? What's going on now? I haven't spent money on my own for so long. I've forgotten all my passwords. Could you wire them $500,000 for me? I replied, a bit awkwardly. Got the payment code. Hearing this, Max motioned for Ethan to take out his phone. Everyone present was stunned. Ethan's face turned visibly darker. Max, this is between us and an old classmate. How could we accept your money? Fiona, aren't you just shameless? Even at school, you seduce men to pay for you. Linda was nearly hysterical with jealousy. She couldn't understand why men kept standing up for a woman like me. This is my business too. Payment code, please. I won't repeat myself, Max said, almost boastfully. Ethan and Linda were furious, but didn't dare defy Max. They meant to embarrass me, showing off their superior lifestyle by belittling me. Reluctantly, Ethan held up the payment code. In seconds, $500,000 was transferred. Linda yelled incredulously, Max, are you seriously okay with paying this tramp $500,000? Max responded coldly, I'd appreciate it if you watch your language. If you insult my wife again, I'll pursue legal action. Everyone was taken aback, momentarily stunned by what Max said. Linda was shocked. Your wife isn't Fiona, is it? Max walked over, wrapped me in his arms while separating me from Howard. Why? Do we not look like we match? Howard rolled his eyes dramatically. Fiona, you married Max, Linda said in disbelief, her voice shrill. Then why pretend to be poor? Riding a cheap scooter. My son chimed in excitedly. Auntie, don't you think scooters are super cool? True enough. My son, ever since kindergarten, envied kids whose parents dropped them off on scooters. I had to dust off the old scooter my dad used for grocery shopping. Now realizing they'd ridiculed someone far wealthier, Linda and Ethan were instantly embarrassed. Their faces flushed red with shame. They assumed I was living in poverty, surely jealous and envious of their status. They didn't know I was in a place they could only dream of. Knowing Max was not just a business mogul, but the richest man in City A, self-made with billions at a young age, all while they struggled to even meet him once. Yet here, they mocked his rightful wife. That's why they were so overwhelmingly humiliated. The parents of our classmates, like fair-weather friends, suddenly changed their tune, criticizing the pair for judging others so harshly. Once everyone found out about my relationship with Max, those parents, who used to be all sarcastic and unfriendly, suddenly warmed up. They came up to greet me, wanted to add me on Instagram, and chat about parenting tips. Max held me close, saying, sorry, my wife's introverted, not really into socializing. Understood, Max. We're not the type to throw our weight around, just because we have money. If Mrs. Max doesn't like it, we won't bother you guys. Listening to their backhanded comments, Linda couldn't handle it. Her face turned sour, eyes reddening as she hoped her husband would comfort her, maybe defend her like Max did for me. But Ethan didn't even glance her way. Instead, his eyes were fixated straight on me. Being stared at so blatantly by a man like that was unsettling, but I wasn't who I used to be. I met his gaze head on. Ethan's eyes were bloodshot, and he bit his lips so hard they turned pale. It was like he was trying to hold back some massive rage, ready to unleash it at any moment. I couldn't figure out why he was mad. We're all living our dream lives. So what's his deal? Max, of course, noticed Ethan's stare. His eyes gave Ethan a warning. Got a problem with my wife? No, not at all, Ethan mumbled, pulling his gaze back and clutching his Porsche keys tightly. He just stood there, silent, like he was deep in thought. Soon after, before the parent meeting even ended, Ethan and Linda made some excuse and left early. Back home, Max snuggled into me, a bit jealous. Think Ethan's got a thing for my precious wife? He asked, sulking. I confidently replied, no way. He just couldn't stand me living a better life now than in our past life. In his eyes, he was a mess back then, and it was all my fault. This time around, I should be paying for it, struggling, and regretting leaving him forever. He didn't expect that without him, I'm doing much better. Max, still a bit sour, asked, what about you? You still thinking about your old classmate? I kissed his lips softly. Silly, not a chance. Max didn't say anything more, just held me tighter and deepened our kiss, whispering huskily, I love you, babe. Howard said he wants a little sister. The next day while dropping my son off at school, I spotted Ethan at the gate. Fiona, can we talk? He asked. We headed to a coffee shop on the corner. As soon as we sat down, Ethan had this smug, satisfied smile like he had me wrapped around his finger again. You're married to Max now, but admit it, you still can't forget about me, he said. Why is he always so confident? Just get to the point, will you? I replied. He said, Fiona, did you know, back then, around this time, we were still traveling between cities, looking for good clinics for IVF. Ethan seemed lost in his memories, rambling on. I used to blame you then, because I so badly wanted to be a father. You couldn't give me the support I wanted, not even a child. Living again, and choosing the life I want isn't wrong. I nodded, agreeing with his sentiment. Back then, it wasn't just him suffering, I was too. Those long needles, the painful procedures each month. I still don't know how I endured it all. Ethan continued. Seeing you now with a 7-year-old son surprised me. What kind of man could make you go through IVF repeatedly? When I saw it was Max, it all made sense. To me, money's a huge temptation. I didn't go through IVF, I admitted honestly. Ethan's eyes lit up. Is your child with Max adopted? Or is he from some other woman Max was with? I knew it. What I couldn't get back then, no one else could have so easily now. I didn't want to burst his bubble, but I had to say, I gave birth to my son naturally, no IVF. My pregnancy was smooth. I got pregnant the second year after getting married. No way. Ethan jumped up, nearly screaming, that's impossible. Fiona, you can't have kids. I just watched as Ethan grew more and more agitated. I didn't smile. I didn't get angry. I kept a blank face. Right then, I truly felt sorry for this man in front of me. After some hesitation, I finally spoke. Why I agreed to talk today, it isn't because I still feel for you. There's something I never told you. Ethan, did you ever consider, maybe you're the one who can't have kids? No way. Ethan became almost manic. My son's right there. How can you say that? I get it. You're just trying to mess with me, aren't you? Let me tell you, Fiona, you've got it all wrong. I'll never regret it. Never. I'm just an ordinary guy. Linda's got connections I need. And what's wrong with wanting a better life? I didn't just rely on her family. I made a name for myself in this big city. Built my own company. Do any of our old classmates have what I've achieved? You can't deny I'm living more successfully this time around. He got more and more emotional as he spoke, as if he was trying to prove something. I sipped my coffee and didn't interrupt him. He only got mad and demanded, what's wrong? You can't say anything, can you? Ethan, in my past life, I really loved you, and because I loved you, I hid the fact that you had azoospermia when I got your medical report. I honestly felt I was so stupid back then. No matter what your mom said about me, that I was a hen that couldn't lay eggs, I never argued back, because I knew you were a man, and your pride mattered even more. If someone had to take the blame, I thought it might as well be me, but I was wrong. I thought you'd understand me, but I became, in your mind, a wife who looked down on your poverty and business failure. In this life, you've been hardworking and successful, but Ethan, there's nothing between us anymore. Today, I just wanted to tell you this secret I've kept for years. I'm too tired of it all." Before I could finish, Ethan burst out saying, "Do you really think I'd believe your lies? My son is 7 years old. He looks just like me. I can't have kids." "You're joking, right?" This man is always confident. How could he admit he's like a rooster that can't lay eggs? I didn't say more and turned to leave. He grabbed my sleeve, and though I didn't look at him, I could hear he was choking up. "Fiona, in this life without me, have you ever regretted it for even a second?" I replied calmly, not looking back. "Never. I hope we never see each other again. Even if we do, let's pretend we're strangers." I yanked my sleeve free from Ethan's grip and walked away, not looking back. His paranoia was indeed deep. The next day, Ethan went to the hospital for a sperm vitality test. The moment he got the report, the words azoospermia stung his eyes deeply. Still not believing it, he went for a paternity test. The son wasn't actually his. So many years of enduring humiliation, thinking he was living life right. Turns out, he had been wearing a massive green hat all along. He started a meticulous revenge. He drugged his in-laws, turning them into vegetables, plotted to transfer company assets, and kicked Linda out of the business. He didn't even spare his own son, leaving them in debt and helpless. Linda, to support her son, had no choice but to sell her body. A year later, she contracted a nasty disease, and hiding in the company parking garage, stabbed Ethan in the chest repeatedly with a knife. She roared in anger, "Did I force you to live with my family? You ate our food, drank our drink, and my parents paid for you to study abroad. You owe everything to us. You were only ever wearing a green hat. You're an infertile rooster, and having an adopted son to care for you wasn't so bad. Yet you ruined us. I didn't force you to be a gigolo. Why blame everything on me?" Struggling in a pool of blood, Ethan finally understood. He was, indeed, a disgusting man, always escaping responsibility, avoiding truth, blaming everything on women. In his past life, he'd known he might have issues, but he habitually blamed Fiona for everything. He ignored the doctor's subtle looks and words when they went for her checkups together. The doctor did say, "Girl, your egg quality's great," but he just didn't want to accept it. So, he agreed with his mother's comments about his wife, neglected Fiona's pain during humiliation, and even resorted to alcohol to numb himself. For the failure of his business, he again blamed Fiona. Even on the day of his car accident, and at their final meeting after being reborn, he didn't want to admit he was wrong. Now he finally realized he had turned into a terrifying monster, unrepentant and hateful. He deserved to lose Fiona's love, undeserving of an understanding wife. I heard about Ethan again from the headlines. Linda had gone mad, pushed their son off the building, and then stabbed Ethan multiple times, ending his life. I still felt regret, but just a little. All the past is now just a fleeting moment. I don't know if Ethan will ever reincarnate, but I pray there's no intersection between him and me ever again. Max saw I wasn't feeling quite right, and hugged me from behind. "Babe, what's up?" Feeling down, I smiled while resting in Max's arms, watching our son play with a car model. The window reflected our little happy family. I smiled, pinched his cheek. "With you too. How could I be unhappy? I knew that in this life, I had a brand new life with love and no more loneliness." The end.